Oh, hello there. Welcome to News, Games, and More, IGN's daily live news show. I will be your host for today. My name is Damon Hatfield. Today, I am joined by Janet Garcia.
What's up?
Stella Chung.
Hello.
And Zach Ryan.
It's me.
What's up, everybody? I hope
that's it. That's all I had.
That's it?
That's it. Yeah.
That's it. That's the tweet. I hope everybody's had a great Tuesday. What is the date today? It's Tuesday, July 7th, and lots of fun little topics to talk about today. Let's begin. We begin with Ubisoft, as so many things do begin. We got some more details on their Ubisoft Forward conference, which is coming up this Sunday. That is July 12th. First of all, I don't know how I feel about this Sunday conference thing. It's going to be much harder for me to tune into this. It's not like we're all at E3 and it's the Sunday before E3, right? You know,
Yeah.
Zach, are you waking up at what is it, 9 a.m.? It's at noon. It's at noon Pacific, so that's at least okay.
Still a valid question. Are you going to be up at that time? Some people aren't.
100%. Yeah, I don't know if you guys are aware, but I'm like an old dude. That means that I wake up at like 6:30 or 7 a.m. without fail. Doesn't matter if it's the weekend or not. Yeah, I know.
But that also means that noon is your nap time.
No, I'm not really much of a nap. I don't do a nap.
Really?
Yeah.
In any case, Ubisoft Forward is the new game showcase. It's happening this Sunday, July 12th, noon Pacific. We know we'll get details on Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Watch Dogs, Legion, and Hyperscape, the newly announced Battle Royale game that's still upcoming. And they'll also have a few surprises. So why don't we begin with Assassin's Creed Valhalla? There was like 30 minutes of leaked gameplay yesterday of very early footage, a little bit of rough footage. Did anybody watch any of that?
Nope. I want to keep my expectations just clear, you know.
I understand. We had an article about it on IGN, and I read the bullet point details from the footage. Joe Scrubbles jumped on that grenade for us. Apparently, the footage was pretty rough, but it did tell us a little bit about the game. But I guess just as a more like high level, how are we feeling about Assassin's Creed Valhalla? Janet, is this a game that you're excited to play later this year? Maybe on a next gen system?
I think with how well received the last one is, I am, but on its own merits, I'm a little bit apprehensive. Like, has it been confirmed that there's level scaling in this, or is that still kind of like via leaks, rumored, sort of like we don't really have all the details. So I think depending on how they handle things like that, because the idea of it looks like a gorgeous game, like the previous one also looked really pretty, seeing it run, especially on like the idea of next gen or even a high end PC. Like, I play a lot of Nintendo games and they're not exactly pushing graphical fidelity, so that element excites me. But the idea of a really long experience that's also kind of grindy, but also level scales where you don't really ever get the payoff for that grind, sort of is a little bit less appealing to me. So I'll be curious to see what the official details of are like in pertains to the game, like, and whether or not it's something that I would want to jump into, because it does feel like a really large commitment. So
for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I played Odyssey for a long time. I never finished it. You know, I never rolled credits, as they say. But Jenna, are you anti level scaling?
I am anti level scaling. I'm on the right side of history. Level scaling sucks, or it should at least be like something you can toggle on and off or opt into, because I feel like if anything, it is an element of difficulty that for some reason is tied more to mechanics, I think, and from a developmental standpoint. Like, I never see that included with easy or normal or whatever. I would love to have the option to just turn it on or off depending on what kind of experience I want as a player.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think Odyssey pushed out an update that allowed you to turn off level scaling eventually. Stella, any opinions on level scaling?
Could someone actually explain that to me? I probably know what it is, but I don't think I know the term.
Yes, it's when the enemies all level up with you instead of them being set.
Oh, I don't mind that in like a story-based game, but if it's an RPG or like an MMO, then I think it doesn't really belong there. I know WoW does something similar where like if you party up with someone who's a lower level, like your levels will stay the same, so you're not just power leveling that person through. So I think in that case, like, that's okay, but I don't know. I don't really have super strong feelings about it, I guess.
Yeah, I guess I agree with Janet. Like, I want to be able to put in the time to become super OP if that's my, if that's how I want to play the game. If I put in the time to become much more powerful than everyone else, that I'd rather be able to do that.
Especially if you're playing from like a completionist angle where you might want to go back and like collect some stuff. I remember with what is the name of? I'm blanking on the name of the game. Two Sisters, Wolfenstein. They had level scaling in that. Yeah, Youngblood. Youngblood had level scaling, and when I was going back for collectibles, it was just such a pain to feel like I had to just like trudge through all of the stuff just when I'm looking for, like, I just want to kill everything and look around. And I'm like, after all the hours I put in, I feel like I should have earned the ability to do that. Yeah,
for sure. Zach, where do you come down on this?
I don't mind it. It doesn't bother me. I like the added challenge. I think what bothered me more so in Odyssey was the way that certain quests and certain objectives and stuff were tied to 2 or 3 levels higher than you. And so like it would break the pace of the game to have to run out and try to grind levels to get to the, high enough level to go to these next objectives. And a lot of it was tied to main story stuff. And they did a very sneaky thing with that game where you could buy for $10, you could buy an enhancement that helped you level up faster. And because I'm a sucker, I bought that and it actually helped me enjoy that game a lot more, but it sucks that you have to buy that. Right.
Yeah, it does.
So I think that I don't mind enemies leveling with you so that the challenge stays, so that it stays challenging depending on what level you've set the game to. I think I more so have an issue with stuff being like, okay, don't go do this quest until you're level 25, and then it taking 2 hours to grind up there,
Mm-hmm. How are you feeling about?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask how you're feeling about Valhalla.
Can't wait. Yeah. Odyssey, despite that additional $10 gouge, Odyssey was one of my favorite games this gen. I really loved it. I didn't play Origins as much as I played Odyssey, but really loved that game as well. So like I'm all in for this new class of Assassin's Creed. I wasn't really a huge fan of the old style Assassin's Creed games. I like these more open world RPG Assassin's Creed's much better. Feels like, especially Odyssey, feels like superhero version of The Witcher or something. So like, this is a day one purchase for me. I got a whole plan. I'm gonna get this game and I'm gonna play it on my Xbox Series X or my I'm gonna do that. This is probably the first game that I play there. So I'm stoked.
Yeah, I love how in Odyssey there was no fall damage, so you could just run around.
You did crazy stuff in that game.
Oh my god,
it was awesome. Yeah.
I'm also anti-fall damage. I love just being able to leap off of stuff. That's like the first thing I check in all games. I'm like, fall damage, and then my character just dies in the middle of the floor. I'm like, yes, all right, we can continue now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Stella, are you excited about Assassin's Creed Valhalla?
I'm kind of reserved about it. I haven't really been into the latest Assassin's Creed games, but I don't know. If the story is compelling enough, I think I'll definitely play it because it looks gorgeous. But for me, story is just a huge component. But I know a lot of people are like, oh, you don't really play Assassin's Creed for the story anymore. It's just kind of pretty and you get to explore all these things. And I'm like, yeah, I guess. So I guess I'll wait and see how people like it.
Well, I think a lot of longtime Assassin's Creed fans miss the heavier emphasis on the modern day story part and the animus and stuff. Were you a fan of that stuff?
I was. I actually used to watch, I didn't get to play the original games because I didn't have a console for myself when those came out. So I watched a bunch of YouTube videos delving into theories and stuff. And I was like, this is so cool. And then I think I started playing Black Flag. And I think that's where the story was very different. And I was like, oh, this isn't actually as interesting anymore because it doesn't connect to the original trilogy, which I found really complicated and cool. But, I don't know.
No, a lot of longtime Assassin's Creed fans agree with you.
Yeah, there's people right here in the comments saying that they miss OG Assassin's Creed, and this person here, many thanks, says Origin, Odyssey, crap games, which direct into the point. I feel like so.
Illuminating.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're also going to find out more about Watch Dogs Legion, the game where you can take control of every NPC in the game, apparently. Janet, is this one that you have your eyes on? Did you play the other Watch Dogs games?
I played a little bit of the second one. I think it's also, isn't it funny how since you can control them, I guess they're not NPCs. Like they're just, everyone's a playable character. That's pretty wild. I think it'll be a fun evolution of what Watch Dogs 2 already established, and it's just kind of an interesting way to deviate from the formula, because from the stuff we've seen so far with the gameplay, it does seem to be a lot of the same. I mean, it is part of a series, so the whole idea is, okay, how can we push forward without losing what fans already like about it? And I think this introduction of you can play as anyone and sort of take control is really fun. One of my favorite things about the little bit of time I did spend with Watch Dogs 2 was just the ability to scan a bunch of stuff and like get more information and intel on people. And I think it's really cool that now you can take that intel and push it a step further and actually, besides just using it to like rob them and like transfer money to your bank account, you can actually say, hey, this person seems cool. This is someone I want basically on my team, in my party, whether it's because you think they're interesting or because you think they're going to have like some cool abilities, or they're an officer and I want to have like an in with the police or whatever. I think that will lend itself to some fun strategies.
Yeah, I was actually, I think I'm in the minority. I actually had a lot of fun and enjoyed the first Watch Dogs, and I actually enjoyed it more than Watch Dogs 2. Zach, did you play both of them?
Didn't play the first. Just completely missed it, but really played the shit out of the second one. Oh, I forgot. Can we do swears on this show? I guess too late. Really loved the second game, especially because it's set in San Francisco. I thought it was really cool to tool around my neighborhood at the time. Yeah, it was, I think Watch Dogs 2 is kind of an underrated gem of this current console generation. And full disclosure, I have played Watch Dogs 3. I've played Watch Dogs.
Oh my goodness! Goodness!
Little known fact: I did work for Ubisoft for about 6 months last year, and this game kicks ass. Like,
and
I think this game is really great.
During your time at Ubisoft, you made Watch Dogs Legion.
That's right. Me and Clint got out there, and me and Clint, we really got out there and made a great little Watch Dogs game. And the two of us are really excited for you to play it later.
That's very, very cool, Zach. I'm very, very proud of you.
Very humble of you.
Thank you.
Stella, how are you feeling about Watch Dogs Legion?
I don't know. I just feel like I have a lot of negative thoughts today, but I don't know. It's interesting. I never played any of the Watch Dogs before, which I kind of wanted to play the second one since I moved to San Francisco. I was like, oh, cool. I get to explore the city, but like run around and do more stuff. With Watch Dogs 3, I think it's interesting that you can play anyone, but what if you really like a certain character, but then they die? Like, is that a permanent death? You have to switch to someone else? Because like, what if I really specifically like this one character, but then I can't get that person back? That's my only complaint. Like,
originally they like when we first did our preview, I think Matt Purslow did our original preview from like the E3 show floor. They did have permadeath at the time. But since then, it has been confirmed that you won't have that, and instead it'll be like this is updated in our wiki page that you'll have people like under arrest, and then they'll have to like just be in jail for a while. So that's how that's going to function in terms of that. But other details I don't think have been fully revealed. We'll see what they decide to sort of highlight, because their last big promotional stuff was like, oh, look at this like old lady that you can play as and like watch her shuffle around. Like, I'm interested to see what is going to be their like fun angle, because they've already pitched us on that. I think everyone was very excited when that was shown off recently. So it'll be interesting to see, like, are they going to double down on that? Are we going to see more of these playable characters, or are they going to zag and show something super new mechanically? That's what I'm
saying. You think we're going to zag on it?
Who know? You would know if you were. So.
I got a lot of people in the comments on YouTube asking if I broke my NDA, and actually I wrote like a whole ass preview with my name on it. So no, there's no NDA breaking going
on. Okay, well, Stella, maybe a little bit more up your alley is Hyperscape. Is this game you have eyes on? Because it's a battle royale.
Oh, okay. So no, this is okay.
I'm so interested.
I did the preview. Well, I didn't do the preview, but I did like a tips and tricks. I got to play the the tech test for it, and I have some thoughts on it. I don't know how deep you want me to go into it.
Go deep.
Okay, deep. So it's currently in closed beta, and it's not bad. It has potential, but I think that it needs a lot of balancing work with the guns and the abilities. I think if they focused solely on the abilities, which are incredibly unique, like one ability lets you turn into a ball and it protects you from damage for a little bit, which is great. I think if they focused on that stuff, then the game would be really solid. I feel like it could actually hold its own against the other battle royales out there. But the gun balancing doesn't feel very good. A lot of things feel like it's just really fast paced, but gunplay doesn't feel good, which is like the main thing of a battle royale. So if they shifted focus, I think they have potential to like compete with other battle royales and stay relevant, unlike other battle royales that have kind of come and gone. But yeah, I know this is just like the early tech test, so yeah.
Our cohorts in the UK did a nice little preview on IGN UK podcast last week, where they talked about the best thing going for this game is actually the setting and the design around being sort of like in the middle of this futuristic city, as opposed to like, you know, an open island forest map like Fortnite or you know, something like Apex. Stella, what do you think about the setting of this game? Do you think it's enough to set it apart, or is it you know, something that is like a nice to have?
I think the setting is refreshing right now, but I think it won't last for a while if that's the only thing keeping it interesting. You know what I mean? Like if just because it looks pretty doesn't mean that it plays nicely, and doesn't mean that it's going to capture people's attention for a long time. So while I really do appreciate the change, because it feels like if you look at the map, it kind of looks like a Division like map, and it has different districts, and they have this thing called what is it? Decay, where basically like the map disintegrates beneath you instead of a circle. I think that's really cool, but that can't be the only thing that's interesting or feels good about the game. So that's where my complaint lies.
Do you know what the rollout plan for Hyperscape is? Does it launch on Sunday, or is it going into like an open beta?
I don't think I can say anything about that right now.
Okay.
But
well,
I'm pretty sure we'll see more in the Ubisoft conference.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll find out more on Sunday. We know that Assassin's Creed Valhalla is coming this holiday. Zach, do you think Watch Dogs Legion is coming out this year?
I don't know. It seems to me like maybe they would clear that runway for Assassin's Creed if they're going to do, you know, if they're going to do a big holiday game. Assassin's Creed is probably the one to do it, and you know they want to launch systems with that game the same way that they launched Xbox One and PS4 with Black Flag. You know, it's kind of a cross-platform deal. So I would assume if I was a betting man, I'd put money on a Watch Dogs in Q1 of 2021. But I don't know. You know, that game has been so oft delayed that it's really anybody's guess when it might drop.
Yeah, well, I think Ubisoft confirmed a long time ago that that's one of the games that's going to be coming to both current and next gen consoles, or at least available to play on both of them in some form. Janet, what was the rollerblading game from E3 last year?
Roller Champions.
Yeah, what happened to that game?
The last I saw, and by the last I saw, I mean what I tapped into a few minutes before you asked me this conveniently. On June 19th, they had a community update posted where they were discussing their closed alpha. So, you know, which is to say that's not in beta yet. It's not really fully publicly available. I think they said actually in this update, we'll be canceling the closed beta and instead kicking off a series of targeted private workshops. So based on that alone, it seems like they got feedback from the closed alpha and decided instead of going forward with a beta that they're going to take a different approach to tweaking the game and improving the game before. I'm not sure if that's going to like be instead of doing a beta at all, or if they still plan to move forward with it. But that's the last update that has kind of been posted towards the community for like front facing. I did preview this game at E3 2019. It was pretty fun. It was pretty easy to learn. We just had like a quick tutorial, and then they're like, okay, everyone go play a match. And I'm like, oh, hope this goes okay, because I'm capturing footage for it. And I found that one thing I liked about it was you had a few ways that you could strategize it. Essentially what it is, it's a roller derby game, and you're trying to like score points by throwing a ball into a ring. And what you could do though is if you weren't that good at shooting, that's me, I wasn't good at like tossing the ball. I'm like, okay, let me focus on just clearing space for my opponents, or giving like, you know, doing an assist and passing to someone that is open, or knocking out other players. So I think in competitive games like this, it's always nice when you give multiple ways to win. It kind of reminds me of not that this is a one-to-one at all, but what's good about Killer Queen, right? If you've ever played that arcade game, it's fun because you have different ways to win, so you don't need to just have your strength in one specific skill. So I think that's the number one thing that Roller Champions has going for it. But with this stuff, it's always so hit or miss. Just because it's a enjoyable time doesn't mean it's gonna like catch fire. So there's so many things that can work for or against it that we'll just have to kind of see what happens when it's free to play in a more public setting, and we can kind of see, hey, does the community latch onto it? What kind of forms here? Like, stuff can take off or it can totally fall flat. And sometimes it's not even a matter of how good the game is. It's just whether or not it's exciting to play and whether or not you have people to play with.
Yeah. And Ubisoft is really into experimenting with these games as a service, multiplayer games. They announced Roller Champions last year. A year later, it's still not out. They're about to launch Hyperscape, this new free-to-play battle royale game. They have, of course, Rainbow Six Siege and For Honor and all this stuff. It's just really, and then there's Skull and Bones, right? The pirate game that still isn't out. That's a good question. Are we going to see Skull and Bones this Sunday?
I'm going to say no. I feel like we haven't. Exactly. When's the last time we've heard about it?
Yeah, I don't think it was at E3 last year.
No, it was not.
Is that game ever coming out?
I mean, you have to imagine that it's still in development somewhere, right? Like, I feel like it's a high enough profile game that if they were to just shelve it or 86 it entirely, that they'd have to say something about it. But yeah. I don't know. Ubisoft has a lot of these kind of games that have been in development for a very long time that we still don't know. We still haven't heard anything about Beyond Good and Evil 2. Mm-hmm. Rainbow Six Quarantine has gone quiet. Beyond Good and I'm sorry, not Beyond Good and Evil. What's the cartoony Breath of the Wild looking one?
Gods and Monsters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that only got that one trailer and some like very limited hands-off demos. So there's still a lot of question marks about a lot of these games. But I think that this particular game, Skull and Bones, is probably the biggest because we've known about it the longest, right?
Yeah. It's just been so long since we've gotten an update on it or seen it. Now, Gods and Monsters, I feel, is a good candidate to see on Sunday because I think it was just announced at E3 last year, and then a playable build of it popped up on Stadia somehow.
Oh, really?
Not too far back before it was pulled down. It was like an early build of the game that just showed up on Stadia that people played. But I don't know. Like, I guess Zach, I keep coming back to you because you worked at Ubisoft. Do you have any sort of like?
That seems like really problematic, Damon. But go ahead.
I just want to like go to the source, right? Do you have any idea what this game is, or like what we can expect from this game?
No, I mean, even I know about as much as anybody else does when it comes to Gods and Monsters. Like, I feel like I saw that trailer, and I think the general consensus was like, "Oh, this is like a Breath of the Wild clone," right? Which I'm all for. I feel like there are not many games that have tried to follow in Breath of the Wild's footsteps and really accomplished that same sort of feeling of discovery and kind of elation and like I would love to see, especially like a cartoony Grecian setting. I think would be really cool for a Breath of the Wild, like, if we want to call it that. So yeah, I hope we get some information about it on Sunday because I'd like to play it.
Jenna, are you looking forward to Gods and Monsters? It's a Nintendo-ish game.
Not particularly. I just feel like I need to see more from it to really feel excited about it, because what I did see was so early, and it was really more of like, hey, I can play it on my phone because of like through Stadia and stuff, which was cool to see. But I feel like I didn't see enough to get excited about it. It does look very similar to Breath of the Wild. The comparisons are going to be like ridiculous, which is kind of unfortunate for the game, because Breath of the Wild is probably the greatest game I've ever played in my life and might just always be that. So that's a high bar to be compared to. I think the other awkward part as well is, and this sort of happened with Skull and Bones too, because I remember Skull and Bones getting mentioned, and it was sort of around that Sea of Thieves era, and people were like, "Oh, are they going to be like in conversation?" But then Sea of Thieves already like is doing its thing, and it has been doing so for some time while Skull and Bones isn't out yet. I'm curious is Gods and Monsters going to come out up against Breath of the Wild too? Because if so, like, I feel like that would be even more awkward. So yeah, we'll see how it pans out. But I think the timing is a little bit weird. And maybe they're reworking stuff to like. I think it'd be really important for them to highlight how it's not just like Breath of the Wild, because everyone's already going to make that comparison. They really need to hit hard on like what makes this mechanically different. Like, don't just be like it's mythology. Like, they have to bring something else to the table to really get people to buy into it as more than just like a Breath of the Wild clone.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about some big Ubisoft games that have not been announced, but there have been rumors about their existence. Wonderful to see anything about them on Sunday. Are we going to see anything about Far Cry?
Yes.
Probably.
I feel like it's like it's like not classic's kind of extreme. 'Cause I don't know, Far Cry is that dope like that, but it's just a staple. It's sort of, I feel like, and I don't really play Far Cry games, but it's sort of a general crowd pleaser. It's not necessarily the best game of the year in any given year, but everyone seems to have fun with it, and it's like a favorable series to talk about. So I feel like that'd be kind of an easy win for them in the sense of an announcement. I don't know if they actually have anything prepared for that, but I feel like no one's going to be mad at seeing Far Cry 6. I don't think anyone's going to go wild for Far Cry 6, but I think it would be, oh, this is interesting. This is something to get excited about because we know what it is. Familiar franchises continuing is always more popular than a new thing. Maybe it doesn't feel that way in conversations with other critics, but from a fan perspective, new is a harder sell because I don't know what you're trying to sell me versus a continuation of something they know they like is a little bit more favorable. So I think Far Cry 6 is very likely.
That's interesting. So you think it's interesting to think of like Far Cry as just sort of like a safe franchise for Ubisoft, because I think the developers try to think of themselves pushing the envelope, being a little bit edgy with their Far Cry games. Stella, did you play any of the recent Far Cry games?
I did. I forget which one it was. It's the one where there's like a secret ending in the beginning if you just wait for the bad guy
That's
at
everyone.
the table. No. Okay, but you like waited at a table for
see
him.
what I mean by safe? It's like,
Yeah. I forget which one that was.
Sounds like 4.
Yeah, I think it was 4. That's the last one I played. They are fun. I feel like it is something that it's kind of like a Call of Duty game. I do see one every year, you know? Yeah. Actually, but in Twitch chat, Ivan says Splinter Cell, hopefully, because they teased it so much with Ghost Recon's DLC, if we're talking about like predictions, which would be really cool to see.
I would love to see Splinter Cell. And yeah, there have been like a lot of sort of like leaks, not leaks, but like rumors and sort of a resurgence of Splinter Cell, the property, like in Ghost Recon. I think Sam Fisher was in Ghost Recon. Maybe someone in the chat can confirm that.
He was.
I would love another Splinter Cell. I just don't know. I feel like it's been so long now that I'm just hoping in vain. I don't know, Zach. What do you think?
Much like the great Star Wars versus Star Trek debate, there was a long history of Splinter Cell versus Metal Gear Solid, and I always fell on the Metal Gear Solid side. Not really much of a Splinter Cell guy, but I do appreciate that. I think it would be a huge deal for fans of that series if they were to make an announcement that game was coming back, because people have been talking about it and asking for it for such a long time, and I think it could be kind of cool if they did like a surprise reveal on to coincide with the Series X, because that series to me has always been kind of synonymous with Xbox. It started there and then it moved over to PlayStation, but yeah, I think that could be a big win-win.
Zach, are you much of a Far Cry guy?
Yeah, I like a good Far Cry. I think that Janet and Stella kind of nailed it in that like Far Cry is probably a safe bet. Like in the same way that Ubisoft has annualized or semi-annualized a lot of their franchises. I think we're due for a new Far Cry, but I would like to see it err on the side of wacky, like a Blood Dragon or a Far Cry Primal. Those are my favorite Far Cry games. I think.
I'm glad you like Primal. I also like Primal.
Dude, Primal, I played the hell out of that game, and I like 3, 4. I didn't really care for 5, but Blood Dragon and Primal I feel like are a cut above. So
yeah.
If we're talking about safe bets for announcements, Just Dance.
Well,
That's the real thing.
No.
Yeah, that's my
Ironically,
that's my
I
game.
love Just Dance. Just Dance is awesome. I buy it every year. Yes, I'm here for Just Dance. There are things I want from Just Dance. I don't think anyone cares to really hear them, but they did add co-op this time around, which I think was a really cool addition.
They had co-op though.
Well, I mean, they added where you could kind of share the score with the person you were playing with. So to make it like non-competitive, like that was something recently they added in. Plus also like who doesn't like seeing those dancing pandas? Like personally, that's what I look forward to every year. Like I would love to be, I don't have the skills to do this, but I would love to be the person inside one of those costumes. I just think that seems like such a fun, enjoyable time. It's always an excitement,
Perhaps my biggest regret was that I worked for Ubisoft during E3 and I didn't even get a chance to meet those pandas. I thought that was like a sure thing, and
For shame,
they're very,
Zach.
very exclusive. Yeah,
For shame.
tough to get an audience with the pandas.
What I'd really want to see from Ubisoft would be another Rayman game. That's
that's a good.
That's all I want. But I feel like it has been so long that I'm not really sure what they're doing with that series. The last Legends came out in 2013 and Origins was in 2011. So at first it kind of seemed like there was a steady cadence, but there's been such a big gap that I just don't really know what's going to happen with that. But I don't know, with the recent PlayStation conference they had, we saw Ratchet come back. So I think there is a possibility for these old staple platformers to have a resurgence. I feel like that makes me sound very old, even though I'm not even that old, but I love platformers and they're not as popular of a genre as they used to be. And Rayman is it's so wonderful. Rayman's just such an underrated platformer. The level design is brilliant. It's always they're just, the recent ones have been so good. I would just love another one. It could be the same game. I wouldn't even care. I would just buy it again.
I can't believe it's been 7 years since the last Rayman game.
I know. It's been too long.
Yeah, it has been too long. One thing I would love that I think is actually fairly realistic, possible, is Mario plus Rabbids 2. Because it's been 3 years since the game.
Is that good? Is that fun?
Oh, hell yeah. That game rules.
It's so good.
Really?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. You know how everyone's no, I promise it's actually good? They're not lying. Everyone has that pitch, and it's so true. It's just a really wonderful game. I will say that I don't come from an XCOM background, so I wouldn't have the same criticisms as someone that's more knowledgeable on that genre might. But I think it's excellent. It's so charming. It's incredibly fun. You have to play it. I recommend the game to literally everybody, even if they've never played that genre. I think it does a great job at teaching you how to navigate those kind of levels, and the design's so great. The weapons are very charming. There's a honey gun. Play it. It's awesome.
Tough. It's challenging.
It is challenging. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was one of my favorite stories. That game leaked right before E3 2018. And I remember when the news of that leak came out, everybody was like, what a terrible idea. God, that's so stupid. Oh my God. And then when Miyamoto came out on stage at E3 that year to talk about it, everybody was like, ooh, actually, wait, what if this game is good? And then it turned out to be really good.
Yeah, it was great.
Classic Cinderella story.
Guys, we did it. We killed half the show on just our first topic.
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of all of us.
We did it. But now it's time to move on. It's time to set Ubisoft aside. We'll just wait until Sunday, July 12th. At noon Pacific
12. Yes.
Yeah, for all these Ubisoft announcements. Let's talk about Activision and Destiny and Marty O'Donnell, ex-Bungie exec. He gave an interview with a Halo YouTuber, Hidden Xperia, where he's talking all sorts of trash on Activision. You may remember Bungie was owned by Microsoft. They parted ways with Microsoft, I think, in 2007, went on their own to build Destiny, and then got picked up by Activision, which published Destiny 1 and 2. But Marty O'Donnell described the deal they had with Activision as, quote, bad from the start. He said, definitely was not a marriage made in heaven at all. We knew it was a risk right from the get-go, and then it turned out to be exactly as bad as we thought it was going to be. Everybody who no longer works for Bungie is going to say, yeah, it was bad from the start. He added that those still at Bungie who say that the partnership worked are being political. That's BS, he says. There are so many scripted answers out there that I hear. Does this surprise you to learn that the partnership between Bungie and Activision was less than ideal?
I don't know. This is sort of a sticky situation, right? It doesn't surprise me that somebody on the outside feels that way, and it wouldn't surprise me that somebody going through what Bungie went through with Activision would feel that way also. I do take a little bit of umbrage, when he's talking about people on the inside being too political and scripted, because he doesn't speak for everybody that still works for Bungie. He doesn't speak for everybody that's ever worked for Bungie. So I think it's a little unfair to paint everybody with such a broad brush. But I totally understand. I can't claim that I know what was happening there, but Bungie is a renowned studio, progenitors of Halo, progenitors of Destiny. But I think taking their IP to Activision and creating something like Destiny, they need someone like an Activision to get that kind of game off the ground. Like that first Destiny was such a hugely ambitious game. I don't think you could have done it without a really huge publisher. And so that sentiment that it might have been a bad deal from the beginning, I'm sure was there. But I don't know. I don't think we'll ever really know the full story because, he does make a good point that like there are multiple sides to this story. And I don't think that the full story will ever really come out.
Sure. And it's also worth noting that part of the bigger picture is that Marty O'Donnell was fired from Bungie.
That's true.
And then he actually ended up suing them for wrongful termination and won. So there's definitely some bad blood, there's probably some resentment on Marty O'Donnell's part.
Yeah.
Then, Bungie Communications Director David Degg has said to Eurogamer a long time ago, just after they first split with Activision, he had said, "We launched this franchise with Activision Destiny. Naturally, and over the course of time, we both decided we had different goals for what we wanted it to be. So we both went our separate ways." So that's at least like the corporate explanation from Bungie. Not that Activision was trying to mess too much with our IP. Part of the reason they chose to go with Activision is that Bungie would retain control of the Destiny IP, and other buyers that they were talking to wanted to gain control of it. One of the other buyers was apparently Microsoft that they were close to forming a deal with. So that would have been pretty ironic if they left Microsoft, build Destiny to only be bought again by Microsoft.
Get back into the fold.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I like there's another anecdote here. Later in his interview, Marty O'Donnell shared an anecdote about a dinner with Activision executives before the partnership deal had been signed. During the dinner, O'Donnell says he was talking to the Activision CFO about a saying, "Be nice to the goose," Bungie being the goose, laying golden eggs for Activision. According to O'Donnell, the CFO told him that he liked the analogy, quote, "But sometimes there's nothing like a good foie gras." O'Donnell, yeah. So it's like, that's just like such a cartoon version of an evil corporate executive. It's almost like even like hard to believe they would be that transparent. I don't know. Stella, have you spent much time playing Destiny?
I did. I think I played more of Destiny 1 than Destiny 2 because when Destiny 2 originally launched, there were some problems with the launch and stuff. But it's grown into its own. I think it's definitely developed into a nice thing now. I think the people who are still very hardcore fans play it a lot. I've unfortunately fallen off of it just because I have so many games that I want to play. So
sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean,
I think Destiny is in the best place that it's been since that first big expansion to Destiny 1. The Taken King. I think that the idea that Destiny is moving to more of a Warframe model where you basically have a platform that they're constantly iterating on. It's so smart and keeps that game so relevant. And if they can even be half as successful as Warframe has been, keep in mind, Warframe was a PS4 launch game. Like that game has been around forever and is bigger now than it's ever been. And so I think that Bungie made a really great call moving towards that model, and they're doing a lot to really redefine how people think about Destiny, how people play Destiny, and how to keep Destiny in the game for a very, very long time to come.
Mm-hmm. Janet, what's your general feeling about Activision?
I'm not sure that I so much have like a general feeling on it in terms of how like this whole situation was handled. Like I'm also not a Destiny player, but I would say in terms of this specific story, obviously it always like brings in different questions from readers saying like, oh, is it true? Is it not true? Whatever. Obviously that's always going to be speculation. Like I think Zach made a really good point in that.
Thank you.
Kind of both of those things. Yes, of course. Kind of, multiple.
You're supposed to do that in a Slack channel.
Sorry.
That's a really deep cut that no one watching this will understand. But like multiple things can be true. Like there can be people that we see this at companies all the time where one person working that either was fired or quit is like, this sucked, this situation was bad, and they tell you their side of their story, and that's totally true for their experience. And you can have other people that was kind of alluded to still work there. And sure, maybe that is a canned answer because how often are we completely transparent with the place we work at ever, like be it retail or a big company or anything? I think it's always weird to like publicly discuss any grievances you do have if you're still with a company, but at the same time, it's not necessarily a lie if they speak positively, because they're kind of trapped back into a corner in that situation. It's kind of an accusation of, if you're not bad mouthing it, and you have to be telling a lie, and that's kind of a weird situation to put anyone in. So yeah, the truth is there could be a lot of truths coming from this, and we don't really have any way of knowing because we're not there. It's kind of just do you buy what this person's selling based on whether or not you just believe them in general, and that's a very personal question and outlook. So we kind of just put this kind of thing out there based on what was said and kind of leave it up to the readers and contextualize it as best we can. But yeah, it could really go either way.
Yeah, that's a good point. It is something to consider. Yesterday we were talking about the story that Microsoft is apparently looking into buying WB Interactive, which would give them Rocksteady, Traveler's Tales, Monolith Software. It's like NetherRealm. They would own Mortal Kombat, which is so crazy. Yeah, it's like, and that's insane. It's an exciting prospect. But then there's this other side of the story that there can be some conflict between the publisher that's buying you and the developers who created the IP. There's no guarantee that that's going to be like a happy marriage, as Marty O'Donnell said. Let's move on to a couple game delays. One of the most surprising remakes announced this year, at least for me, was Kingdoms of Amalur: Re-Reckoning. It was originally supposed to be out August 18th. It's been pushed back just a little bit to September 8th. Need a little bit more time. Probably because of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, and the developers are probably all working from home. But the Re-Reckoning includes all the original DLC, which I think is very cool, improved graphical fidelity, but it's also getting a brand new DLC expansion called Fatesworn, and it's coming next year. So it seems like an unusual instance where this, the developer, they're basically a port house, is remaking this game, Kingdoms of Amalur: Reckoning, and they're going to create their own original DLC for it. I don't think I've ever, seen that happen before. Zach, what do you think about that?
I think it's cool. Who else is better equipped to create something new based on an existing property or franchise than somebody than a team that has been so entrenched in the mechanics and the design of that world, right? Like, I think it's a really smart call. And for all intents and purposes, the team behind this Re-Reckoning, that's when you reckon again. They might be huge fans of Kingdoms of Amalur, or like really dedicated to the series, and like have had these ideas for a while. Like, hey, what if we could make a game like this? And now they've been granted this license. I think it's cool. I think it's a super cool opportunity.
I think it's really cool too. The story of Kingdoms of Amalur it's one of the craziest stories I've covered in my time at IGN. I think I want to say it's 2012, early 2012. It came out. From 38 Studios. The game was well received. It got good reviews, and then the studio just completely imploded almost immediately after the game launched. And they had big plans for the license. They're going to make a sequel. They're going to make an MMO based in the universe. None of that happened. The state of Rhode Island ended up suing the founder of the studio, Kurt Schilling, for unpaid. I don't know if royalties is the right word, but they thought he owed them money. It was just totally crazy. So it's really cool that this game is coming back now. Of course, I covered that story, but I never played the original game myself. Did anyone here actually play Kingdoms of Amalur?
Nope.
Yeah. So this is crazy to me, this game. And sorry to take us off topic for a little bit, but like, I've considered myself entrenched in like games media and gaming news for a very long time. I had no idea what this game was when they announced the remaster. Like, I don't know if my brain just like blacked it out or what, but like this game was not on my radar at all, had never even heard of it. And then like going back through the news and seeing like all the stories that you're just talking about like the bankruptcy and the lawsuits and things like that. But then also seeing the critical reception of it, I was like, how did I possibly miss this game? It's like a huge blind spot in my gaming history. So after learning all of that, like, I'm pretty stoked to go back and try it and see, what the fuss was all about.
Yeah, for sure. It's supposed to be a really good game. It came out 4 months after Skyrim.
Okay.
So, and it's also like, a fantasy RPG. So I think maybe people were just still, Skyrim is still being released on modern platforms, so it's a game that you live with for a long time. So might just have been poor timing on Amalur's part. Yeah, it's one of the craziest stories. IGN fan Andrew C asks, "Do you think he's talking about the new DLC that they're making for the Re-Reckoning? Do you think this is a bit of a slap in the face to the original development team?" I don't know, Janet. How does that? What do you think about that? Like, is it cool that we're getting any sort of new content for the Re-Reckoning?
I mean, that's kind of a complicated question. It sort of depends on what your creative ethos is. I don't think it's necessarily a slap in the face. I think it's a little bit extreme because we maybe haven't seen a situation like this specifically, but we've seen an IP get used by another studio. I think it depends on, I don't know the ins and outs of the financials or like who owns what, and like if anything was done in a way that would warrant it a phrase so extreme as a slap in the face. Like we've seen, like what is Media Molecule has Little Big Planet, and that game has been made by I'm forgetting the studio's name that recently made the last one and is making the next one. But like we've seen that handled by different studios. Even something like the Daxter PSP game wasn't made by Naughty Dog, but it feels very much in that universe and was sort like these things can be totally amicable. And I think that, especially when you start thinking of like, I think games are sort of similar in a sense to how we have like that superhero mythos, and not that they're quite as expansive and like up for grabs as that is, but we see different iterations of stories or series, and as long as it's, I think, clear in some way to consumers or in marketing, like I think there are times where it can look shady, but in this case, I don't, I'm not a developer, so I can't speak on that element of it, but I can't imagine this being like an insult to that development team, because especially it's not saying that like, oh, this game was, sucks, so we're just making something entirely different or anything like that. It's the opposite. It's saying, hey, this is awesome, and we kind of want to breathe new life to it and do our own thing with it. And as long as it's on the legal up and up, like I said, there's a chance that there's something shady happening in the background that I'm not familiar with. But outside of something like that, I think it's totally cool to do.
So I agree with your points. I think that it is well within bounds for another studio to take on another studio's IP, as long as those, like legal hoops have been jumped through. I think specifically to this question, was it IGN fan? What was the question asked?
IGN fan, Andrew C. Do you think it's a bit of a slap in the face? Yeah.
So I think the slap in the face part is coming from what Damon mentioned earlier, that this particular team had like a whole vision of other content that they wanted to make, an MMO, a sequel, a shared universe, whatever. I think maybe that's where this question is coming from. Like, do we think it is a bummer to that team to see this IP being resurrected by somebody else, by another team that maybe didn't have the opportunity, or they didn't have the opportunities to do that, but now that opportunity is being handed to somebody else,
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's totally understandable if they're resentful about the way things went down and how they lost their jobs immediately after shipping this critically acclaimed game. Mm-hmm. But then it's also sort of a testament to the work that they did, that it's still that people still want to play around in that world they created today. Mm-hmm. So I hope they can feel good about that.
That's pretty similar to. No, I don't want to take this off topic, but that's very similar to Telltale and The Walking Dead.
Yeah, you're right.
Yep.
Yeah, I know that one's kind of more of like a. Well, actually, I don't know. I don't know the Kingdoms of Amalur. I don't know the developer stories, but I know Telltale's, breakdown was not exactly the most graceful. So, how did things end with that developer for Kingdoms of Amalur? Like, did they let everyone go without telling them? Really?
Well, I don't know how much notice they had, but yeah, the developer was shut down very, very shortly after the launch of the game.
Okay, that sucks. I think if they hold resentment, I would say that's totally valid.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about Telltale and The Walking Dead, that someone has sort of resurrected or taken up the mantle and is like working
Skybound,
on those
right?
games.
Wasn't it Skybound that finished those games?
That one's a lot weirder to me. That one I'm
totally.
less cool with for a number of reasons, but
Stella, what's one of your favorite games that you would like to see remade that hasn't gotten a remake yet?
Oh, in general?
Yeah, just in general.
Oh my god, you gotta prep me for this.
Well, think about it. Okay, go ahead.
Oh my god, what is? Oh, Mass Effect 1, the first one, because I really
want a remake of that.
Yeah. Because I think I've tried playing through it so many times on my PC, and it doesn't really hold up anymore. So I just find myself kind of skipping that and going to 2. Yeah. So yeah, I would like a remaster or even like an HD remake. That'd be nice.
Yeah, I think people were expecting the Mass Effect trilogy, a re-release at EA Play a few weeks ago. We didn't get it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Our producer John Borba says he would like a remake of The Thing for PlayStation 2, and I agree. That would be really cool. That's a very, very cool
Is that a horror game?
Yeah, it is a horror game.
No, thank you. No, I'm good.
Wait a minute. Wait. How are you handling Last of Us Part 2, Stella?
Oh, with lots of screams. It's
Just
screaming at every corner. I just start screaming. It's fine.
Do you think the infected are more terrifying than the humans in that game?
Yes, because I can't outrun some of those guys. All right, like there's like the new I don't know how much can I say. There's like a new kind of zombie, and they terrify me so much.
There's only one new one, and it's large. The other one is not new. It's from the old one.
Yes, the large ones terrify me because
one, yeah.
what am I supposed to do? I am squishy. Don't touch me.
Okay, another game that just got a bit of a delay today was Mafia Definitive Edition. Delayed from August 28th to September 25th. About a month delay for that one. Developer Hangar 13 explained the delay has been caused by difficulties caused by working amid the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Oh man, we've lost Zach, everybody.
The fact that it said battery exhausted on the screen, like that's a whole mood.
But
I'm out. All right, you guys go ahead. I'll fix this.
No, I love it. It's good. Zach can still hear us. He can still participate in the conversation. Mafia Definitive Edition delayed about a month. This one is a total remake of the 2002 original. Includes a new game engine, an updated script, new cutscenes, new gameplay sequences, and more. They put a lot more into this one than the recently released definitive editions of Mafia 2 and 3, which I think were just sort of dusted off remasters. This is a whole remake of the original Mafia.
This is so confusing. This is so confusing to me. Like,
I know.
This is the first game in the series. Why didn't they just hold the collection until the first game was done? Like, it's nice to have 2 and 3, which are arguably like better games, but like, this is the first one. You want to play the first one first. That's how time works. Like, this is crazy.
This is the new official order of the series.
2, it's a chop order, right?
Yes.
Yeah. You gotta play 1 in between 2 and 3, and you just pretend that it's a prequel. It's fine.
You know, some say you have to know where you're going to know where you've been, and those people.
I say that all the time.
So,
Constantly saying that.
Yeah,
I agree. The rollout of these games is very strange. It's always it can be disappointing when a game you're looking forward to is delayed. IGN commenter Dr. Truth 1797 says, "Just wait until your game is 100% done before announcing a release date. Wouldn't it be better to get it done and then announce a release date, knowing full well the game is done? You won't have to worry anymore. First draft release dates are practically pointless now." That would be nice. Totally unrealistic for what it would take to, you got to market your game. You got to build awareness. You got to build excitement for your game.
Yeah. Like, do you have the money for that? Because I'm sure the studios don't. Like, also, even on a smaller level too, like if you're someone that does any level of creative work, chances are a lot of times you are talking about your work before it's released anyway. Like, even stuff like that we do that's less big production, like a review or a preview. Like, a lot of times we're hyping that up. We like drop it when it comes out. You drop it again afterward. Like, if we're doing that, and that's not even technically part of like what I get paid to do, like I just get paid to do the work. I don't need to promote it, but I'm still doing it because I want people to see it. Now, if that also was based on my livelihood, I would be going like even harder on that. So it would be kind of cool. And sometimes it does feel like, why don't you just talk to me when you have something else to say? But like, the reality is of the cycle, like, I don't think there's a perfect cadence to do any of those things. And if there is, I think we as a games industry are still figuring out what that cadence is. And with games changing so often, like, the more and more ambitious it is, the more you're into uncharted territory. And then it's hard to tell, okay, well, would I rather say the date and then change it later, or risk not having the time to really market it? And then it's just a difficult situation, but it is frustrating as like a fan to be like, it's coming out. No, it's not coming out. Like, we have to change our calendars like all the time here, like with planning for wikis and guides and things. So it's just how it is.
It's even crazier that like you purchase those as a bundle, right? Like, you purchase those as a 3-game bundle, but that one third of that whole 33% of that whole transaction is just missing. Like,
Yeah,
it's wild. It's absolutely crazy.
it is wild. I think you can also buy them separately though. I think there's a bundle, and then you can also buy them separately.
That makes more sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for walking me back.
Jen, I think this was a question you posed. Is it weird to use definitive edition for a from the ground up remake? Is that underselling it? And that's interesting to think, because it's like you think definitive edition is like, this is the best version of something that we already released, whereas a remake is like, this is a totally different version of what we already released, like Final Fantasy VII Remake. Like, is that what you were getting at, Janet?
Yeah, like it's when I think definitive edition, and I've kind of Googled this a little bit, and I think there have been times where it's been somewhat of a remake, but a lot of times those are more like something up-resed, or you have like Game of the Year edition, or you have a definitive edition that bundles DLC. But I think it's kind of surprising to see it as Mafia Definitive Edition when it is a remake, when they're not even just remaking it, but this mentions like an updated script, that there's new cutscenes in it, that there's new gameplay sequences. Like, this sounds like a lot more than just what even a remaster or a port would be. So I'm surprised that it's kind of labeled that way, but I also think we're very much figuring out what language we want to use for what remakes are. Like, you know, we had that, what was it, Resident Evil 2 remake. Capcom said it wasn't a remake, but we're like, it's a remake, and no one listened to what they said. So it's like, it's these weird situations. But yeah, Definitive Edition feels very old and DLC bundly to me. Like, it doesn't feel like a ground up thing is what it is.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. We're really lacking a standardized nomenclature in our industry, because, like you said, Resident Evil 2 is a full-on remake of the original, but it's just called Resident Evil 2. And then Resident Evil 7 is a very different interpretation of what the original is, and they call that a remake. So it's very confusing. If I tried to explain this to anybody that doesn't follow this stuff, I think they would have a hard time keeping up. I think we got time for we're going to do some quick hit news hits in the last 4 minutes of the show today. Sega has announced another very, very strange, borderline useless miniature device as part of its 60th anniversary. It's announced a miniature arcade cabinet with 36 games included. This is part of its ongoing 60th anniversary celebrations. You may have seen a few weeks ago, they announced the Game Gear Micro, which is a micro version of its handheld device that is so small I just can't imagine it's going to actually be playable in any form. The screen is only 1 inch. The buttons are going to be so small and cramped. It's so stupid. This little miniature arcade cabinet fits in your hand. That's how small this is. At least you can hook it up to your TV with HDMI. They've announced 10 of the 36 games so far. I will list them now. Alien Syndrome, Alien Storm, Altered Beast, Columns 2. Why not 1 and 3? Because 1 and 3 were Sega Genesis games, not arcade games. Dark Edge, Fantasy Zone, Golden Axe, Revenge of Death Adder, Tant R, a game I've never heard of in my life, and Virtua Fighter. Zach, what is Tant R? You know.
Yeah,
you've been to Tokyo.
You know what? I was gonna make a joke about Sting, but I'm just not gonna go there. Yeah. Like, it's I don't know what
I don't know what I can't even guess what kind of a game Tant R would be.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
This thing is gonna be available in Japan later on this year. No word on a release outside of Japan for roughly $120. I don't know. I really like the design of it because it's those cute little arcade cabinets that you only see in Tokyo. Anyone who's been to a Tokyo arcade recognizes this, and I would love to have a bigger, maybe even a full-size version of this. With Zach, would you be down with that?
I don't know. I mean, it depends on the games, right? Yeah. Like, I don't know. In the same way that they kind of butchered the conversation around the Game Gear Micro, like this, it's all dependent on what those games look like and how they actually play on this tiny console or tiny arcade machine. You know, like I don't know. Until I get my hands on it, I couldn't say for certain.
Yeah.
I would buy it if they had a bunch of Virtua On games on there, though. That would be cool.
Yeah. It was Virtua Fighter. Did I say that was part of one of these games? Yeah. Virtua On games are really cool. Janet, I think you said something on Twitter about how you're not interested in playing old games. You said you don't want to play GoldenEye.
Some old games. Yeah. Correct. I have played GoldenEye. I don't want to do it again.
So I just wonder, like what would be the micro cabinet, the micro console that would really appeal to you?
I don't know if there's so much a cabinet. I just feel like what's fun about arcade cabinets is they're big and they're like kind of gaudy. The only closest thing to a micro cabinet that I like are the 1-Up arcade machines because they're just cheaper versions of the thing that I can't afford, and they're way too heavy. Like a real cabinet is massive, so that feels more palatable. But a mini, it's just so tiny that and then if I'm going to plug it into my TV, it kind of ruins the novelty factor of it in some ways because it's not how you would engage with the cabinet. So to be honest, I don't think there's any micro cabinet I'd like. I did like the micro consoles. Like I had the mini NES and the mini SNES. So I enjoyed those, but then also like I didn't really play them very much. And a lot of those, like they're kind of just little cute memorabilia. Like I think if you really liked that cabinet or that console, they're fun to collect. But I don't think it's a super viable way to enjoy old games because there's so many other options that are more streamlined, whether you want to stick to the original hardware or just, jankily port stuff with a Raspberry Pi. Like they're kind of neither of those things. They're just cute, which I can appreciate. I like cute things.
Same. I also like cute things. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be another episode of News, Games, and More in the Bag. Thank you for hanging out with us on this Tuesday afternoon. Thank you to Janet, Stella, and Zach. We'll be back in the same place, same time tomorrow on Wednesday. Everybody have a great evening. We'll see you tomorrow.